Previously on Something Fresh.
I'm sorry I laughed at you this morning.
I'm not. Come and laugh at me whenever you feel like it. I like being laughed at.
Don't you see? That's all the cards are in her hands.
These are my scarabs.
Dear me, a Cheops.
Of the fourth dynasty.
Who is Freddie? Do you ask? Freddie's my fiancé, George, my betrothed, my steady, the young man that I'm going to marry.
Curious how you cling to that Freddie idea.
He's such a nice old man. I'm sure he didn't mean to steal the scarab.
Of course he meant to steal it. He has a museum of his own down in the country. My Cheops is going to lend tone to that. Whoever carries this job through gets $50,000.
$50,000?
$50,000.
When do I begin?
You are quite a nice young man, Mr. Marston, but you mustn't try to jump my claim. I dare say you need that money too, but I'm afraid you must go without. I'm going to have it, and nobody else.
The 4:15 express slid softly out of Paddington Station, and Ashe Marsdon settled himself in the corner seat of his second-class compartment. Opposite him, Joan Valentine had begun to read a magazine. Along the corridor in the first-class smoking compartment, Mr. Peters was lighting a big black cigar. Still farther along the corridor, in a first-class non-smoking compartment, Aline Peters looked through the window and thought of many things.
Well, Mr. Marston, here we are.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Well, what do you think of it all, Mr. Marston? Are you sorry or glad that you let me persuade you to do this perfectly mad thing? I feel responsible for you, you know. If it had not been for me, you would have been comfortably in Arundel Street, running your wand of death.
I'm glad.
You don't feel any misgivings now that you are actually committed to domestic service?
Not one.
I wonder whether you will continue to feel so brave.
What do you mean?
I meant that from what I've seen of him, Mr. Peters seems likely to be a rather trying man to work for.
Yes, I imagine he will be. He's what you might call quick-tempered. He has dyspepsia, you know.
I know.
What he wants is plenty of fresh air and no cigars and a regular course of those Larson exercises that amused you so much.
Are you going to try and persuade Mr. Peters to twist himself about like that? Do let me see if you do.
I wish I could.
Do suggest it to him.
Don't you think he would resent it from a valet?
I keep forgetting that you are a valet. You look so unlike one.
Old Peters didn't think so. He rather complimented me on my appearance. He said I was ordinary looking.
I shouldn't have called you that. You look so very strong and fit.
Surely there are muscular valets.
Well, yes, I suppose there are.
While on the subject, I suppose you don't look in the least like a lady's maid. You look like a disguised princess.
Oh my God. That's very nice of you, Mr. Marston, but you're quite wrong. Anyone could tell I was a lady's maid a mile away. You aren't criticizing the dress, surely?
The dress is all right. It's the general effect. I don't think your expression is right. There's too much attack in it. You aren't meek enough.
Meek? Have you ever seen an English lady's maid, Mr. Marston?
Why, no. Now that I come to think of it, I don't believe I have.
Well, let me tell you that meekness is her last quality. Why should she be meek? Doesn't she go in after the groom of the chambers?
Go in? Go in where?
In to dinner. I'm afraid you don't know much about the etiquette of the new world you have entered so rashly. Didn't you know that the rules of precedence among the servants of a big house in England are more rigid and complicated than in English society?
You're joking.
I'm not joking. You try going into dinner out of your proper place when we get to Blandings and see what happens. A public rebuke from the butler is the least you could expect.
Heavens, if a butler publicly rebuked me, I think I should commit suicide. I couldn't survive it. Tell me all you know. I feel as though I have escaped a frightful disaster.
You probably have. I don't suppose there is anything so terrible as a snub from a butler.
If there is, I can't think of it. When I was at Oxford, I used to go in and stay with a friend of mine who had a butler that looked like a Roman emperor in swallowtails. He terrified me. I used to grovel to the man. Please give me all the pointers you can.
Well, as Mr. Peters' valet, I suppose you will be rather a big man.
I shan't feel it.
However large the house party is, Mr. Peters is sure to be the principal guest, so your standing will be correspondingly magnificent. You come after the butler, the housekeeper, the groom of the chambers, Lord Emsworth's valet, Lady Anne Warblington's lady's maid.
Who is she?
Lady Anne, Lord Emsworth's sister. She has lived with him since his wife died. What was I saying? Oh, yes. After them come the Honorable Frederick Threepwood's valet, and myself, and then you.
I'm not so high up then, after all.
Yes, you are. There is a whole crowd who come after you. It all depends on how many other guests there are besides Mr. Peters.
I suppose I can charge in at the head of a drove of housemaids and scullery maids?
My dear Mr. Marsden, if a housemaid or a scullery maid tried to get into the steward's room and have her meals with us, she would be
Rebuked by the butler?
carved like a roast, I should think. Kitchen maids and scullery maids eat in the kitchen. Chauffeurs, footmen, under butler, pantry boys, hall boy, odd man, and steward's room footman take their meals in the servants' hall, waited on by the hall boy. The housemaids and nursery maids have breakfast and tea in the housemaid's sitting room, and dinner and supper in the hall. The chef has his meals in a room of his own near the kitchen. Is there anything else I can tell you, Mr. Marsden? We stop at Swindon in a half an hour. Don't you think you would be wise to get out there and go straight back to London, Mr. Marsden? Think of all you would avoid.
It's a nightmare.
You would be far happier in Arundel Street. Why don't you get out at Swindon and go back?
I can't. There's a reason.
Market Blandings Station.
The village of Market Blandings is one of those sleepy English hamlets that modern progress has failed to touch, except by the addition of a railroad station and a room over the grocer's shop where moving pictures are on view on Tuesdays and Fridays. To alight at Market Blandings Station in the dusk of a rather chilly spring day, when the southwest wind has shifted to due east and the thrifty inhabitants have not yet lit their windows, is to be smitten with the feeling that one is at the edge of the world with no friends near. Ashe, as he stood beside Mr. Peters' baggage and raked the unsympathetic darkness with a dreary eye, gave himself up to melancholy. Above him, an oil lamp shed a meager light. Along the platform, a small but sturdy porter was juggling with a milk can. The east wind explored Ashe's system with chilly fingers. Out of the gloom and into the feeble rays of an oil lamp came Joan Valentine. She had been away, tucking Aline into the car. She looked warm and cheerful. She was smiling in the old friendly way.
Isn't it a shame? I've just put a penny in the chocolate slot machine, and it's empty. I've a good mind to write to the company.
Ashe felt as though he were listening to the strains of some grand, sweet anthem.
Cart from the castle's here.
At last! I hope it's a covered cart. I'm frozen. Let's go and see.
Against the pale gray sky, Blandings Castle stood out like a mountain. It was a noble pile of early Tudor building. Its history, is recorded in England's history books, and the Viollet-le-Duc has written of its architecture. It dominated the surrounding country. The feature of it which impressed Ashe most at this moment, however, was the fact that it looked warm, and for the first time since the drive began, he found himself in a mood that approximated cheerfulness. The door opened. Warm, kitcheny scents came through it. Strong men hurried out to take down the trunks, while fair women, in the shape of two nervous scullery maids, approached Joan and Ashe and bobbed curtsies. This, under more normal conditions, would have been enough to unman Ashe. But in his frozen state, a mere curtsying scullery maid expended herself harmlessly on him. He even acknowledged the greeting with a kindly nod. The scullery maids, it seemed, were acting in much the same capacity as the attachés of royalty. One was there to conduct Joan to the presence of Mrs. Tremlow, the housekeeper, the other to lead Ashe to where Beach, the butler, wanted to do honor to the valet of the castle's most important guest. What you need to know about butlers. Butlers as a class seem to grow less and less like anything human in proportion to the magnificence of their surroundings. The greater the house, the more magnificent the butler. Blandings Castle was one of the more important of England's showplaces, and Beach accordingly had acquired a dignified inertia that almost qualified him for inclusion in the vegetable kingdom. He moved, when he moved at all, slowly. He distilled speech with the air of one measuring out drops of some precious drug. His heavy-lidded eyes had the fixed expression of a statue's.
Come in.
The gentleman, Mr. Beach.
I have not the advantage of your name, Mr.
Marston, Ashe Marsdon.
You must have had a cold ride, Mr. Marston. The wind is in the east.
Yes, cold.
When the wind is in the east, I suffer from my feet.
I beg your pardon?
I suffer from my feet. You are a young man, Mr. Marston. Probably you do not know what it is to suffer from your feet. Corns.
I'm sorry.
I suffer extremely from my feet. Not only corns. I have but recently recovered from an ingrowing toenail. I suffered greatly from my ingrowing toenail. I suffer from swollen joints.
I'm sorry. You must have had a bad time. Is there a large house party here just now?
We are expecting a number of guests. We shall, in all probability, sit down 30 or more to dinner.
A responsibility for you.
You are right, Mr. Marston. Few persons realize the responsibilities of a man in my position. Sometimes, I can assure you, it preys on my mind, and I suffer from nervous headaches. Sometimes when I come off duty, everything gets blurred. The outlines of objects grow indistinct and misty. I have to sit down in a chair. The pain is excruciating.
But it helps if you forget the pain in your feet.
No. I suffer from my feet. simultaneously.
Tell me all about your feet.
And Mr. Beach did.
You have been with Mr. Peters some time, Mr. Marsden?
Eh? No, only since last Wednesday.
Indeed. Might I inquire whom you assisted before that?
This is my maiden voyage as a valet.
Your first situation? Indeed.
I was doing something else before I met Mr. Peters.
Ah,
Something different. I might have had better luck while I was looking for a place. I dare say you know how bad-tempered Mr. Peters is. He is dyspeptic.
so I have been informed. I, too, suffer from my stomach. I have a weak stomach. The lining of my stomach is not what I could wish the lining of my stomach to be.
Tell me all about the lining of your stomach.
And Mr. Beach did.
So late. I shall have to be going about my duties. And you also, Mr. Marsden, if I may make the suggestion. No doubt Mr. Peters will be wishing to have your assistance in preparing for dinner. If you go along the passage outside, you will come to the door that separates our portion of the house from the other. I must beg you to excuse me. I have to go to the cellar.
Following his directions, Ashe came after a walk of a few yards to a green baize door, which, swinging at his push, gave him a view of what he correctly took to be the main hall of the castle, a wide, comfortable space, ringed with settees and warmed by a log fire burning in a mammoth fireplace. On the right, a broad staircase led to the upper regions. It was at this point that Ashe realized the incompleteness of Mr. Beach's directions. Doubtless the broad staircase would take him to the floor on which there were bedrooms, but how was he to ascertain, without the tedious process of knocking and inquiring at each door, which was the one assigned to Mr. Peters? As he stood irresolute, a door across the hall opened, and a man of his own age came out. Through the doorway, which the young man held open for an instant while he answered a question from somebody within, Ashe had a glimpse of glass-topped cases.
I say, old man, would you mind telling me how I get to Mr. Peters' room? I've lost my bearings.
Mr. Peters' room is the second at the left on the second floor. You can't miss it.
I'm much obliged. Awfully good of you.
Not at all.
You lose your way in a place like this.
You certainly do.
Damn the thing. Oh, it's you, is it? Come in then. Don't stand staring. Close that door, quick. Hustle. Don't scrape your feet on the floor. Try to look intelligent. Don't gape. Where have you been all this while? Why didn't you come before? Can you tie a tie? All right, then do it. I've been thinking about you.
Yes.
Have you located the scarab yet?
No.
What the devil have you been doing with yourself then? You've had time to color it a dozen times.
I've been talking to the butler.
What the devil do you waste time talking to butlers for? I suppose you haven't even located the museum yet.
Yes, I've done that.
Oh, you have you? Well, that's something. And how do you propose setting about the job?
The best plan would be to go there very late at night.
Well, you didn't propose to stroll in the afternoon, did you? How are you going to find the scarab when you do get in?
I don't know.
You don't know. Tell me, young man, are you considered pretty bright as Englishmen go?
I'm not English. I was born near Boston.
Oh, you were you? You blank, boneheaded, bean-eating boob? Then if you are an American, why don't you show a little more enterprise? Why don't you put something over? Why do you loaf about the place as though you're supposed to be an ornament? I want results, and I want them quick. I'll tell you how you can recognize my scarab when you get into the museum. That shameless old green goods man who sneaked it from me has had the gall, the nerve to put it all by itself with a notice as big as a circus poster alongside of it, saying that it is a Cheops of the 4th dynasty presented by J. Preston Peters, Esquire. That's how you're going to recognize it. The thing isn't even in a glass case. It's lying on an open tray on top of a cabinet of Roman coins. Anybody who is left alone for 2 minutes in the place could take it. It's criminal carelessness to leave a valuable scarab about like that. If Lord Jesse James is going to steal my Cheops, he might at least have had the decency to treat it as though it were worth something.
But it makes it easier for me to get it.
It's got to be made easy if you were to get it. Here's another thing. You say you're going to try for it late at night. Well, what are you going to do if anyone catches you prowling around at that time? Have you considered that?
No.
You would have to say something, wouldn't you? You wouldn't chat about the weather, would you? You wouldn't discuss the latest play. You would have to think up some mighty good reason for being out of bed at that time, wouldn't you?
I suppose so.
Oh, you do admit that, do you? Well, what you would say is this. You would explain that I had rung for you to come and read me to sleep. Do you understand?
You think that would be a satisfactory explanation of my being in the museum?
Idiot! I didn't mean that you're to say it if you're caught actually in the museum. If you're caught in the museum, the best thing you can do is say nothing and hope that the judge will let you off light because it's your first offense. You're to say it if you're found wandering about on your way there.
It sounds thin to me.
Does it? Well, let me tell you that it isn't so thin as you suppose, for it's what you will actually have to do most nights. 2 nights out of 3, I have to be read to sleep. My indigestion gives me insomnia. Oof. Wow. The lining of my stomach is all wrong.
How do you expect not to have indigestion? You take no exercise and you smoke all day long. Your sort of man makes me angry. I know your type inside out. You overwork and shirk exercise and let your temper run away with you, and you smoke strong cigars on an empty stomach, and when you get indigestion as a natural result of it, you look on yourself as a martyr, nourish a perpetual grouch, and make the lives of everybody you meet miserable. If you would put yourself into my hands for a month, I would have you eating bricks and thriving on them. Up in the morning, Larson exercises, cold bath, a brisk rundown, sharp walks.
Who the devil asked your opinion, you impertinent young hound?
Don't interrupt. Confound you. Now you have made me forget what I was going to say.
You infernal, impudent.
Don't talk to me like that.
I'll talk to you just anyway.
Very well then, I'll quit. I'm through. You can get somebody else to do this job of yours for you. If I had known what being your valet involved, I wouldn't have undertaken the thing for $1 million. Just because you had some idiotic prejudice against letting me come down here as your secretary, which would have been the simple and obvious thing, I find myself in a position where at any moment I may be publicly rebuked by the butler and have the head stillroom maid looking at me as though I were something the cat had brought in. Do you realize a fraction of the awful things you have let me in for? How on earth am I to remember whether I go in before the chef or after the 3rd footman? I shan't have a peaceful minute while I'm in this place. I've got to sit and listen by the hour to a bore of a butler who seems to be a sort of walking hospital. I've got to steer my way through a complicated system of etiquette. And on top of all of that, you have the nerve, the insolence to imagine that you can use me as a punching bag to work your bad temper off. You have the immortal rind to suppose that I will stand for being nagged and bullied by you whenever your suicidal way of living brings on another attack of indigestion. You have the supreme gall to fancy that you can talk to me as you please. Very well, I've had enough of it. I resign. If you want this scarab of yours recovered, let somebody else do it. I've retired from business.
My boy, my dear boy, be reasonable.
It's all very well. You can't get out of it like that. You've got to come to an understanding. The point is that if I am to be subjected to your senile malevolence every time you have a twinge of indigestion, no amount of money could pay me to stop on.
My dear boy, It shall not occur again. I was hasty.
Throw away that cigar.
My boy.
Throw it away. You say you were hasty. Of course you were hasty, and as long as you abuse your digestion, you will go on being hasty. I want something better than apologies. If I'm to stop here, we must get to the root of things. You must put yourself in my hands as though I were your doctor. No more cigars. Every morning, regular exercise.
No, no,
Very well.
no, stop, stop. What sort of exercises?
I'll show you tomorrow morning. Brisk walks.
I hate walking.
Cold baths.
No, no,
Very well.
no, stop. A cold bath would kill me at my age.
It'll put some new life into you. Do you consent to the cold baths? No? Very well.
Yes, yes, yes,
You promise?
yes, yes.
All right, then. We settled that just in time.
Young man, if after all this you fail to recover my Cheops for me, by George, I'll skin you.
Don't talk like that. It's another thing you've got to remember. If my treatment is to be successful, you must not let yourself think in that way. You must exercise self-control mentally. You must think beautiful thoughts.
The idea of skinning you is a beautiful thought.
Dinner had been more pleasant for some than others. Ashe had been left feeling that he had barely survived a minefield, dodging social errors by a cat's whisker. Joan had seemed impressed, but Ashe was not, knowing his ignorance of country house etiquette might trip him up at any moment. He felt certain he could soften Beach with carefully chosen topics, soliciting information about the butler's physical well-being. But however much Ashe needed information about the museum's whereabouts, he required recovery time before braving Beach's sanctum. Fortunately, he spotted the Honorable Frederick Threepwood's valet Judson approaching. Ashe took a confident step forward. He had one urgent question. Surely he could broach it here, valet to valet.
Hey, old chap, can you help a fellow out?
What do you require, Mr. Marston?
I've been hearing so much about the museum. Mr. Peters has been going on about it. Would it be all right to take a look around myself? And where is it stashed? I keep getting turned around.
It can be confusing. Let me tell you about the time.
Unseen by either man, Mr. Beach had stepped out of the housekeeper's room. Unknown to Ashe, he was treading perilously on one of Mr. Beach's areas of expertise. Mr. Beach was quite proud of the Blandings Castle Museum and the social prominence it had brought to him. It had been the means of getting him into print for the first and only time in his life. A year before, a representative of the Intelligencer and Echo from the neighboring town of Blatchford had come to visit the castle on behalf of his paper, and he had begun one section of his article with the words, "Under the auspices of Mr. Beach, my genial cicerone, I then visited his lordship's museum." Mr. Beach treasured the clipping in a special writing desk.
Mr. Marston, if you had any questions about the museum, you should have brought them to me.
Mr. Beach can take care of you, Mr. Marston. It's time to lay out my Freddie's pajamas.
Mr. Beach, Mr. Peters was talking about the scarab in Lord Emsworth's possession. Have you seen it?
Yes, I have seen the scarab. Such a strange little thing. Lord Emsworth speaks very highly of the scarab as a gift from Mr. Peters. Very generous. These American millionaires are given to such generosity. I have heard Mr. Baxter kept going on about how extremely valuable the scarab is. Very generous gift. Are all American millionaires so generous?
You hear stories.
Yes, one hears stories.
Mr. Beach, I wonder whether you would take me to see Lord Emsworth's museum.
I shall be pleased to take you to see his lordship's museum.
Mr. Peters, shortly after dinner, was in a dangerous and reckless mood. He had had a wretched time all through the meal. The Blandings chef had extended himself in honor of the house party and had produced a succession of dishes which, in happier days, Mr. Peters would have devoured eagerly. To be compelled by considerations of health to pass these by was enough to damp the liveliest optimist. Mr. Peters had suffered terribly. Occasions of feasting and revelry like the present were for him so many battlefields on which greed fought with prudence. All through dinner he brooded on Ashe's defiance and the horrors which were to result from that defiance. The thought that under Ashe's rule he was to undergo the kind of horrors touted by those health cranks who believed that all mortal ailments could be cured by cold showers and brisk walks. He would not stand it. He would be hanged if he'd stand it. He would defy Ashe. But if he defied Ashe, Ashe would go away. And then whom could he find to recover his lost scarab? He rose from the table in a thoroughly overwrought condition of mind. Mr. Peters had come to the hall because its solitude suited his mood. It was only after he had finished a cigar — Ashe could not stop his smoking after dinner — that it suddenly flashed on him that he had ready at hand a solution of all his troubles. A brief minute's resolute action, and the scarab would be his again, and the menace of Ashe a thing of the past. He glanced about him. Yes, he was alone, alone in the hall, not a dozen feet from the unlocked museum door. Not once since the removal of the scarab had begun to exercise his mind had Mr. Peters contemplated for an instant the possibility of recovering it himself. The prospect of the unpleasantness that would ensue had been enough to make him regard such an action as out of the question. The risk was too great to be considered for a moment. But here he was, in a position where the risk was negligible. This chance was presenting itself in all its simplicity, and all he had to do was grasp it. The door of the museum was not even closed. He could see from where he had stood that it was ajar. He moved cautiously in its direction, not in a straight line as one going to a museum, but circuitously as one strolling without an aim. From time to time he glanced over his shoulder. He reached the door, hesitated, and passed it. He turned, reached the door again, and again passed it. He stood for a moment, darting his eyes about the hall. Then in a burst of resolution, he dashed for the door and shot in like a rabbit. At the same moment, the efficient Baxter, who from the shelter of a pillar on the gallery that ran round 2/3 of the hall, had been eyeing the peculiar movements of the distinguished guest with considerable interest for some minutes, began to descend the stairs. Rupert Baxter, the Earl of Emsworth's indefatigable private secretary, was one of those men whose chief characteristic is a vague suspicion of their fellow human beings. He did not suspect them of this or that definite crime. He simply suspected them. He did not definitely accuse Mr. Peters in his mind of any specific tort or malfeasance. He had merely felt that something fishy was toward. He had a sixth sense in such matters. But when Mr. Peters, making up his mind, leaped into the museum, Baxter's suspicions lost their vagueness and became crystallized. Certainty descended on him like a bolt from the skies. On oath before a notary, the efficient Baxter would have declared that J. Preston Peters was about to try to purloin the scarab. Baxter descended the stairs, 3 at a time, and entered the museum at the very instant when Mr. Peters' twitching fingers were about to close on his treasure. He handled the delicate situation with eminent tact. Mr. Peters, at the sound of his step, had executed a backward leap, which was as good as a confession of guilt, and his face was rigid with dismay. But the efficient Baxter pretended not to notice these phenomena. His manner, when he spoke, was easy and unembarrassed.
Ah, taking a look at our little collection, Mr. Peters, you will see that we have given the place of honor to your Cheops. It is certainly a fine specimen, a wonderfully fine specimen.
Baxter talked on, to give a jumpy Mr. Peters time to recover. He spoke of Moot and Bubastis, of Ammon and the Book of the Dead. He directed the others' attention to the Roman coins, when the door opened and Beach, the butler, came in, accompanied by Ashe. In the bustle of the interruption, Mr. Peters escaped, glad to be elsewhere, and questioning for the first time in his life the dictum that if you want a thing well done, you must do it yourself.
I was not aware, sir, that you were in occupation of the museum. I would not have intruded, but this young man expressed a desire to examine the exhibits, and I took the liberty of conducting him.
Come in, Beach. Come in. Oh, Beach.
Sir?
Just a moment.
He drew the butler into the hall, out of earshot.
Beach, who is that man?
Mr. Peters' valet, sir.
Mr. Peters' valet?
Yes, sir.
Has he been in service long?
He has only just joined Mr. Peters, sir, and he has never been in service before. He told me so himself, and I was unable to elicit from him any information as to his antecedents. His manner struck me, sir, as peculiar. It crossed my mind to wonder whether Mr. Peters happened to be aware of this. I should dislike to do any young man an injury, but it might be anyone coming to a gentleman without a character, like this young man. Mr. Peters might have been deceived, sir. Should he be informed, sir?
Who?
Mr. Peters, sir, in case he should have been deceived.
No. Mr. Peters knows his own business.
Far from me, be it to appear officious, sir, but
Mr. Peters probably knows all about him. Tell me, Beach, who was it suggested this visit to the museum? Did you?
It was at the young man's express desire that I conducted him, sir.
The efficient Baxter returned to the museum without a word. Ashe, standing in the middle of the room, was impressing the topography of the place on his memory. He was unaware of the piercing stare of suspicion that was being directed at him from behind. He did not see Baxter. He was not even thinking of Baxter. But Baxter was on the alert. Baxter was on the warpath. Baxter knew. As Ashe sat on his bed at the end of his first night in Castle Blandings, he was conscious to a remarkable degree that fortune was treating him well. He had survived, not merely without discredit, but with positive triumph, the initiatory plunge into the etiquette maelstrom of his life below stairs. So far from doing the wrong thing and drawing down on himself the just scorn of the steward's room, he had been the life and soul of the party. Even if tomorrow, in an absent-minded fit, he should anticipate the groom of the chambers in the march to the table, he would be forgiven, for the humorist has his privileges. He looked at his watch. It was 5 minutes to 1. He had no idea whether they kept early hours at Blandings Castle or not, but he deemed it prudent to give the household another hour in which to settle down, after which he would just trot down and collect the scarab. The novel he had brought down with him from London fortunately proved interesting. 2 o'clock came before he was ready for it. He slipped the book into his pocket and opened the door. All was still and uncommonly dark. Researches made at an earlier hour had familiarized him with the geography of the place. He found his way to the green baize door without difficulty, and stepping through was in the hall, where the remains of the log fire still glowed a fitful red. This, however, was the only illumination, and it was fortunate that he did not require light to guide him to the museum. He knew the direction and had measured the distance. It was precisely 17 steps from where he stood. Cautiously, and with avoidance of noise, he began to make the 17 steps. He was beginning the 11th when he bumped into somebody soft, somebody whose hand as it touched his felt small and feminine. The fragment of a log fell on the ashes, and the fire gave a dying spurt. Darkness succeeded the sudden glow. The fire was out. That little flame had been its last effort before expiring, but it had been enough to enable him to recognize Joan Valentine.
Good Lord! Hello?
Don't be alarmed.
No.
I think we are both here for the same reason.
You don't mean to say...
Yes, I have come here to earn the $50,000 too, Mr. Marsden. We are rivals.
You are here to get the scarab?
Exactly.
But you aren't a young man of good appearance.
I don't know what you mean, but Aline Peters is an old friend of mine. She told me her father would give a large reward to whoever recovered the scarab. So I...
Look out! Run! There's somebody coming.
Who's that? Who's there? What are you doing here?
Mr. Peters rang for me, sir.
Rang for you at 2:30 in the morning?
To read to him, sir.
To read to him at this hour?
Mr. Peters suffers from insomnia, sir. He has a weak digestion, and pain sometimes prevents him from sleeping. The lining of his stomach is not at all what it should be.
I don't believe a word of it.
Here's the book I'm about to read to him. I think, sir, if you will excuse me, I had better be going to his room. Good night, sir. I've come to read to you.
You fool! Don't you know I have just managed to get to sleep?
And now you're awake again. Such is life. A little rest, a little folding of the hands and sleep, and then bing, off we go again. Hope you will like this novel. I dipped into it and it seems good.
What do you mean by coming in here at this time of night? Are you crazy?
It was your suggestion. And by the way, I must thank you for it. I apologize for calling it thin. It worked like a charm. I don't think he believed it. In fact, I know he didn't believe it, but it held him. I wouldn't have thought up anything half so good in an emergency.
Did you get it? Have you been after my Cheops?
I have been after your Cheops, but I didn't get it. Bad men were abroad. That fellow with the spectacles who was in the museum when I met you there this evening swooped down from nowhere, and I had to tell him that you had rung for me to read to you. Fortunately, I had this novel on me. I think he followed me upstairs to see whether I did really come to your room.
Baxter. He's a man named Baxter, Lord Emsworth's private secretary, and he suspects us. He's the man you have got to look out for.
Well, never mind. Let's be happy while we can. Make yourself comfortable and I'll start reading. After all, what could be pleasanter than a little literature in the small hours? Shall I begin?
Ashe Marsdon found Joan Valentine in the stable yard after breakfast the next morning, playing with a retriever puppy.
Will you spare me a moment of your valuable time?
Certainly, Mr. Marsdon.
Shall we walk out into the open somewhere, where we can't be overheard?
Perhaps it would be better.
Request your canine friend to withdraw. He prevents me from marshalling my thoughts.
I'm afraid he won't withdraw.
Never mind. I'll do my best in spite of him. Tell me, was I dreaming or did I really meet you in the hall this morning at about 20 minutes after 2?
You did.
And did you really tell me that you would come to the castle to steal...
Recover?
Recover Mr. Peters' scarab?
I did.
Then it's true?
It is.
This seems to me to complicate matters somewhat.
It complicates them abominably.
I suppose you were surprised when you found that I was on the same game as yourself?
Not in the least.
You weren't?
I knew it directly. I saw the advertisement in the Morning Post, and I hunted up the Morning Post directly. You had told me that you had become Mr. Peters' valet.
You have known all along?
I have.
You're wonderful.
Because I saw through you?
Partly that, but chiefly because you had the pluck to undertake a thing like this.
You undertook it.
But I'm a man.
And I'm a woman. And my theory, Mr. Marsdon, is that a woman can do nearly everything better than a man. What a splendid test case this would make to settle the votes for women question once and for all. Here we are, you and I, a man and a woman, each trying for the same thing and each starting with equal chances. Suppose I beat you. How about the inferiority of the women then?
I never said women were inferior.
You did with your eyes.
Besides, you're an exceptional woman.
You can't get out of it with a compliment. I'm an ordinary woman, and I'm going to beat a real man.
I don't like to think of ourselves as working against each other.
Why not?
Because I like you.
I like you, Mr. Marsdon, but we must not let sentiment interfere with business. You want Mr. Peters' $50,000? So do I.
I hate the thought of being the instrument to prevent you from getting the money.
You won't be. I shall be the instrument to prevent you from getting it. I don't like that thought either, but one has got to face it.
It makes me feel mean.
That's simply your old-fashioned masculine attitude toward the female, Mr. Marsdon. You look on women as a weak creature, to be shielded and petted. We aren't anything of the sort. We're terrorists. We are hard as nails. We're awful creatures. You mustn't let my sex interfere with your trying to get this reward. Think of me as though I were another man. We're up against each other in a fair fight, and I don't want any special privileges. If you don't do your best from now onward, I shall never forgive you. Do you understand?
I suppose so.
And we shall need to do our best. That little man with the glasses is on his guard. I was listening to you last night from behind the door. By the way, you shouldn't have told me to run away and then have stayed yourself to be caught. That is an example of the sort of thing I mean. It was chivalry, not business.
I had a story ready to account for my being there. You had not.
And what a capital story it was. I shall borrow it for my own use. If I'm caught, I shall say I had to read Aline to sleep because she suffers from insomnia. And I shouldn't wonder if she did. Poor girl. She doesn't get enough to eat. She's being starved. One of the footmen said she refused everything at dinner last night. And, though she vows it isn't, my belief is that it's all because she's afraid to make a stand against her old father. It's a shame.
She is a weak creature to be shielded and petted.
Well, yes, you caught me there. I admit that poor Aline is not a shining example of the formidable modern woman, but oh bother, I just sort of what I ought to have said. The good repartee that would have crushed you. I suppose it's too late now?
Not at all. I'm like that myself. Only it is generally the next day when I hit the right answer. Shall we go back? She is a weak creature to be shielded and petted.
Thank you so much. And why is she a weak creature? Because she has allowed herself to be shielded and petted. Because she has permitted man to give her special privileges. And generally, no, this isn't so good as I thought it was going to be.
It should be crisper. It lacks the punch.
But it brings me back to my point, which is that I am not going to imitate her and forfeit my independence of action in return for chivalry. Try to look at it from my point of view, Mr. Marsden. I know you need the money as much as I do. Well, don't you think I should feel a little mean if I thought you were not trying your hardest to get it, simply because you didn't think it would be fair to try your hardest against a woman? That will cripple me. I should not feel as though I had the right to do anything. It's too important a matter for you to treat me like a child and let me win to avoid disappointing me. I want the money, but I don't want it handed to me.
Believe me, it will not be handed to you. I have studied the Baxter question more deeply than you have, and I can assure you that Baxter is a menace. What has put him so firmly on the right scent, I don't know, but he seems to have divined the exact state of affairs in its entirety. So far as I am concerned, that is to say. Of course, he has no idea you were mixed up in the business, but I am afraid his suspicion of me will hit you as well. What I mean is that, for some time to come, I fancy that man proposes to camp out on the rug in front of the museum door. It will be madness for either of us to attempt to go there at present.
It is being made very hard for us, isn't it? And I thought it was going to be so simple.
I think we should give him at least a week to simmer down.
Bully that.
Let us look on the bright side. We are in no hurry. Blandings Castle is quite as comfortable as number 7 Arundel Street, and the commissariat department is a revelation to me. I had no idea English servants did themselves so well. And as for the social side, I love it. I revel in it. For the first time in my life, I feel as though I am somebody. Did you observe my manner towards the kitchen maid who waited on us at dinner last night? A touch of the old noblesse about it, I fancy. Dignified, but not unkind, I think. I can keep it up. So far as I'm concerned, let this life continue indefinitely.
But what about Mr. Peters? Don't you think there is danger he may change his mind about that $50,000 if we keep him waiting too long?
Not a chance of it. Being almost within touch of the scarab has had the worst effect on him. It has intensified the craving. By the way, have you seen the scarab?
Yes. I got Mrs. Twemlow to take me to the museum while you were talking to the butler. It was dreadful to feel that it was lying there in the open waiting for somebody to take it and not be able to do anything.
I felt exactly the same. It isn't much to look at, is it? But if it hadn't been for the label, I wouldn't have believed it was the thing for which Peters was offering $50,000 reward. But that's his affair. A thing is worth what somebody will give for it. Ours not to reason why. Ours but to elude Baxter and gather in it.
Ours indeed. You speak as though we were partners instead of rivals.
You've hit it. Why not? Why any cutthroat competition? Why shouldn't we form a company? It would solve everything.
You mean divide the reward?
Exactly, into 2 equal parts.
And the labor?
The labor?
How shall we divide that?
My idea was that I should do what I might call the rough work and...
You mean you should do the actual taking of the scarab?
Exactly. I would look after that end of it.
And what would my duties be?
Well, you would, as it were, how shall I put it? You would, so to speak, lend moral support?
By lying snugly in bed, fast asleep?
Well, Yes, something along those lines.
While you ran all the risks?
No, the risks are practically non-existent.
I thought you just said just now that it would be madness for either of us to attempt to go to the museum at present. It won't do, Mr. Marsden. You remind me of an old cat I once had. Whenever he killed a mouse, he would bring it into the drawing room and lay it affectionately at my feet. I would reject the corpse with horror and turn him out, but back he would come with his loathsome gift. I simply couldn't make him understand that he was not doing me a kindness. He thought highly of his mouse, and it was beyond him to realize that I did not want it. You are just the same with your chivalry. It's very kind of you to keep offering me your dead mouse, but honestly, I have no use for it. I won't take any favors just because I happen to be a female. If we are going to form this partnership, I insist on doing my fair share of the work and running my fair share of the risks. The practically non-existent risks.
You're very resolute.
Say pig-headed. I shan't mind. Certainly I am. Our girl has got to be, even nowadays, if she wants to play fair. Listen, Mr. Marsden, I will not have the dead mouse. I do not like dead mice. If you attempt to work off your dead mouse on me, this partnership ceases before it has begun. If we are to work together, we are going to make alternate attempts to get the scarab. No other arrangement will satisfy me.
Then I claim the right to make the first one.
You don't do anything of the sort. We toss up for first chance, like little ladies and gentlemen. Have you a coin? I will spin, and you call.
This is perfectly
Mr. Marsden.
under protest.
Head or tail?
Tail.
Tail it is. What a nuisance. Well, never mind. I'll get my chance if you fail.
I shan't fail. If I have to pull the museum down, I won't fail. Thank heaven there's no chance now of your doing anything foolish.
Don't be too sure. Well, good luck, Mr. Marsden.
Thank you, partner.
They shook hands.
There is just one thing, Mr. Marsden.
Yes.
If I could have accepted the mouse from anyone, I should certainly have accepted it from you.
Join us next week for the final chapter of Something Fresh.